What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Stardust here. Welcome back to another video here on the YouTube channel, and today we are going through another Spider-Man related article in Marvel's Avengers, this time written by Game Informer. Now, after I did the video yesterday talking about the IGN video clips, I kind of felt like it wasn't really doing service. Like, there was so much information that we didn't really hear about, you know what I mean? And, well, Lord behold, they actually did their thing early, and it turns out there was a load more of Spider-Man related information that came out that day. Now, I don't know if IGN just did it because they wanted to play dirty or what, I have no idea, or if they just wanted to pump it out with no effort, but Game Informer are a trusted website. I want to go through what they think of it, and then we can, put two and two together ourselves. So, since before the game even launched, fans of Marvel's Avengers, specifically, there you go, those on PlayStation, have anxiously waited for Spider-Man to swing into the adventure. Over a year later, Marvel's flagship character finally arrives on November 30th. We've seen his costume and have gotten a sense of his personality in a cinematic trailer, meaning the final questions revolve around the story and how Spider-Man controls in-game. Spider-Man's debut comes via the free hero event with great power. Speaking with Crystal Dynamics, it's still unclear how big the story is compared to the more compact operations or large-scale expansions. Now, I will say that judging by the IGN video, it does seem to be that it won't be as big as those operations, but we also don't know how many challenges they're going to have in the game for us to unlock different sort of story elements. So maybe in total, doing all those challenges and stuff, it'll actually prove to be longer than those operations, but maybe not as in depth. As for the character himself, Crystal Dynamics shares that their Spider-Man, voiced by Sean Chiplock, is in his early 20s and has been a superhero for a little while. That likely indicates he started after A-Day, which, if you guys watched the video I did before, CD Nicky confirmed that that is actually the case, which would mean he spent the entirety of his career protecting an Avengerless New York City. As such, this isn't an origin story. Spider-Man is an experienced crime fighter at this point, but has primarily worked alone. Now, so Peter stumbles upon a sinister plot connected to AIM that may be bigger than he can handle. This bit we kind of know. This is where it gets kind of interesting. After interacting with Black Widow via a Tiny Dancer online alias, the two exchange information on AIM, which is brilliant because I did mention this, that Black Widow was active around that Avengers time as Tiny Dancer, and obviously she was, keeping tabs on Kamala, so who's to say she wasn't doing the same with Spider-Man? He eventually meets the entire team and agrees to tackle this threat alongside them, but struggles to work under a team dynamic. By the end, Spider-Man will ultimately decide whether or not to remain a full-fledged Avenger, which, is a really good way to handle the exclusivity of it, because if Spider-Man decides, I will help you guys, but I don't really want to be a full-on Avenger, I've got my own stuff to deal with, then it kind of helps with, not having him into, the wider picture, if you know what I mean. Other characters involved in the story include Liz Allen, Peter's friend and college classmate, who players will find in the Anthill, which is really sick, by the way. We've got a Spider-Man sort of related character in the Anthill, which is going to be very weird to sort of witness. I don't know how that's going to work out in the long run. And Mark Raxton also appears, who comic fans know best as the villain Molten Man, but Crystal Dynamics didn't confirm if we'll see his transformation here. So that's a good opening for a potential villain sector. That could be something that we might see in the future. Hopefully we do. That would be pretty cool. So let's jump into gameplay. First and foremost, can Spider-Man web swing? Yes, he can. Crystal Dynamics described his web swinging as an expanded, less restrictive take on Miss Marvel and Black Widow's forms of swinging around. Unlike them, Spider-Man doesn't need ledges or poles to attach web lines. His web's attached to pretty much anything, even if you don't always see it. This means he can swing in more open spaces. It may not always make sense, but Crystal Dynamics chose to emphasize fun over realism after considering more limiting alternatives. This should always be, in my opinion, where Crystal Dynamics goes down. There is no reason that in a game where Hulk is kicking up boxes to get new rib cages, do we need to worry about realism? This is a superhero universe, and in my opinion, if the choice is either realism or fun, fun will win every single time. If people don't like the fact that he cloud swings, you guys are playing a weird game, because he absolutely needs to, or you're going to be running across the wasteland like it's no one's business. I don't get why people don't want cloud swinging. Doesn't make sense. Always choose fun every single time. Holding down the right shoulder trigger while jumping initiates web swinging, meaning Spider-Man's traversal feels fundamentally different from those of other heroes who moves a map to the jump button, which is really interesting. So obviously that would then mean that, you know, Spider-Man already feels like an entirely different animal. You know what I mean? Like that's you know, the R2 button, I do believe, on PlayStation. So that's crazy. Like that is a brand new thing. Wall crawling is present, and players can freely cling to and move around most surfaces. Spider-Man can also wall run like Captain America and Black Panther. The difference is that Spidey can wall run indefinitely. He does have sticky feet after all. He can run left, right, and up walls and bank around corners to leap into web swinging. This seems like Spider-Man really is the most traversal-based superhero in the entire game, which does make sense because he is the most known for his traversal and stuff like that. But I got to commend Crystal Dynamics for kind of going the maximum effort they possibly could without kind of overdoing it, if you know what I mean. Of course, Spider-Man's web shooters are an important offensive tool. Shooting targets builds up web status, a meter that, when full, immobilizes enemies. You can also knock webbed up foes into walls, making them stick there. Webs can also inflict various debuffs unlocked from a skill tree, such as making web targets more invulnerable to damage and status effects from other heroes, or causing them to drop more health packs upon defeat. Crystal Dynamics says Spider-Man feels like a support hero in that sense, which is kind of how he really is in most games, right? Spider-Man seems to be like a support AoE kind of character in the majority of the games where he's interacting with the wider Marvel universe. That makes a lot of sense. Web shooters have alternate firing modes such as a charge shot, web bombs, a web tether to stick enemies together, and a trap set on floors or walls that ensnare bad guys. Spidey even has a wide-reaching web attack that pushes mobs backwards while immobilizing them. Additionally, Spider-Man can deploy a drone that fires web projectiles to help tie up enemies. The drone can also create bubble shields around Spidey, which helps defend objectives. That sounds really OP. Spider-Man sounds like a really great support character. Like, this sounds like the first time ever in Marvel's Avengers where Spider-Man, like, where a character is genuinely sounds like he's completely built for support. Like, 100%, right? I can see him obviously being able to do big damage because damage is key in Marvel's Avengers, but I could definitely see him being, like, pretty much his meta being a support-based hero. Spider-Man's ultimate heroic ability is his web wrecking ball, as the name implies. Spidey weaves a gigantic web ball that he slams down onto targets and deals significant damage. Some of the abilities are available right off the bat, which is interesting, while others are unlocked and improved through skill tree upgrades. Overall, Spider-Man is very adept at crowd control, but Crystal Dynamics says he isn't a ranged character despite his array of web attacks. Now, in Marvel's Avengers, ranged seems to be the key. Range seems to always be the meta in this game. Besides with Black Panther, Hulk, and Thor, I would say that you're kind of better off going for range no matter what, and I like the thought of Spider-Man moving away into that and being a part of a melee category. Spider-Man still relies on an acrobatic flurry of punches and kicks to handle most threats. Peter's trusty, which, by the way, there's a couple of screenshots here. I should probably go through them. These are absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, they're not actually like, you know, like a photo mode version, which you can tell because this is clearly like this Iron Man is definitely just got a sprinkled in there, if you know what I mean. But no, it is cool. It's still cool. Peter's trusty Spider Sense serves as a defensive ability, while other heroes block or parry attacks. Spider-Man dodges, with players hitting the button with an indicator appears on screen. Nailing perfect dodges grants a defensive boost, making you sturdier for a limited time period, while also inflicting an impact armor debuff to the attacker. See, that's sort of like alone, that's amazing, because Spider Sense isn't really a big thing in most Spider-Man games. It kind of is just used as like a way to know when to dodge, whereas this one actually benefits from that, if you know what I mean, and that's sick. I love that so much. Like his other moves, the Spider Sense has a line of upgrades to make evasion even more powerful. Spider-Man boasts plenty of unlockable costumes as well. He'll begin wearing his redesigned take on the classic Spidey outfit, but you can also unlock the original Steve Ditko designed costume. Crystal Dynamics recently revealed their takes on Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Armor MK1, MK3, and Secret Wars costumes as well. Spider-Man looked like a blaster using the footage we've seen, and he should make for an entertaining addition to the roster. Players can see him in action themselves by watching an Avengers War Table gameplay deep dive presentation on Monday, November 29th, the day before Spider-Man arrives. We can't wait to finally get our hands on Spider-Man, and if with great power story proves to be as exciting as its starring hero's gameplay, PlayStation fans may have a great reason to boot up Marvel's Avengers one more time. So, there we go, right? A completely contrasting situation to the IGN article, and I know that GameSpot did, like, an article similar to this, where it was essentially, like, the same thing, right? So, I don't know what to make of it. I don't know whether IGN just decided to piss about or what, but this sounds really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to being able to see more of Spider-Man come the War Table Day. Obviously, I'm going to be blasting out videos on the time of his release, but let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys think this changes the narrative that's been going on with Spider-Man. Obviously, we didn't see any gameplay from Game Informer, we did from IGN, so you've got those contrasting sort of situations. Paul Tassi also wrote something really positive about Spider-Man, so we're really going to have to wait and see. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in a bit. Peace.